What's up, Only Playbook fans? We are back for another episode 38, Wildcard Weekend, or I guess this year they called it Super Wildcard Weekend because there were 3 games on each side versus 2. Super Wildcard Weekend is officially wrapped up. Man, that was some good football. We're happy to be able to unpack all of this today. Unfortunately, it is just me, Sweetcar, and Shovit, and we are virtual. Shashot is actually in Orlando doing some big boy doctor interview stuff, so we wish him the best of luck. But Shovit, how was your weekend? How did you enjoy your football Sunday and Monday?
You know, it was great. It's potentially Ben Roethlisberger's last game of his football career, but he gave it his best, and it was good. It was great having Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to watch football. So I think it was spaced out really well, and I'm just excited to see more football before it all ends.
I know. It seems like it's coming so quickly. Again, right? I don't know if it's because we've just been covering football all year for the first time, and or it's just been, like we talked about, just a wild year of football. But everything seems to have been happening so fast, and it seems like it's winding down so quickly. And then it's just going to be an off season of like that SpongeBob meme where we're just sitting at the coffee shop waiting for football to start back up, dude. So it's going to be wild. But again, we're excited to be here. Again, we're the Only Playbook. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed our content so far this year, we are everywhere. Social media, Twitter at Only Playbook, Instagram at The Only Playbook, and TikTok at The Only Playbook. If you listen to us on Spotify, Google, Anchor, Apple, we're everywhere, right? So YouTube at The Only Playbook. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, tell your friends. 1 like, 1 retweet, 1 subscription will help spread the word to people that may enjoy the content just like you have. So thank you guys so much for all of the support so far this year. And we want to do a quick announcement for the first time since we've become a podcast officially. Next week on Saturday, we are officially going to have our first guest on the podcast show of it. They are not just any guest. Nope. Not just any guest.
They are
go.
You want me to go ahead? 2020 Rose Bowl MVP.
Oh, shit.
Straight out of Oregon.
Oh, shit.
Out of Oregon.
Wearing those fly-ass jerseys with all them colors.
Yeah. Great old Mighty Ducks. And playing for the Detroit Lions.
Detroit.
None other than Sweetcar.
None other than Mr. First name and last name of 2 of arguably the 5 to 10 best quarterbacks of all time. So, it all says it in the name of this player, right? We are going to have on Saturday joining us in person live, safety for the Detroit Lions, Brady Breeze. Brady Breeze from the Detroit Lions, played football in Oregon, won the Rose Bowl MVP, got drafted by the Tennessee Titans, and now he is on the Detroit Lions. He finished the season with them. We are so excited. First guest on the podcast. Who would have thought? First year we became a podcast. We already have an NFL player on the podcast. So we're so excited just to get to know Brady, interview him, get in the mind of a former, of an NFL player, current NFL player, and, just understand the logistics, what got him here, some stories that he may want to share and really just take it as it goes. So we're very, very excited.
If you told me in the beginning of October, when we first started this podcast and you said, we're going to have an NFL player by the end of the year, I would have said, hell no, you were smoking something real good. Give me some of that. There's no possible way. But that's what the, word of mouth, getting our podcast out there to people has allowed us. And Sukar, you've been big on that. So it's just a fortunate event. And I can't wait to sit down and talk to Brady Breeze.
Yeah, sometimes things just fall in place, man. Yeah. Sometimes things just fall in place. This was one of those things that just happened to work out. And obviously, shout out to Brady for giving us his time. I mean, again, at the end of the day, we're incredibly fortunate that he's agreed to hang out with us for a little while, get us in the life of Brady Breeze, the NFL player, Brady Breeze, the college football player, and Brady Breeze, just a guy, a normal guy. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're probably going to record that. We're actually going to record that this Saturday and probably put it out next week at some point. So stay tuned for that. We'll obviously have a ton of more information on Twitter at Only Playbook, on Instagram throughout the week. So check it out. He's all over social media as well. So follow him on Instagram at Brady Breeze. Follow him on Twitter, Brady Breeze. Get to know the man because we are excited as can be. So thank you so much, Brady. And obviously we'll talk more about Brady for days and months and maybe years to come. This could be the start of, everything. So again, so excited. Brady Breeze, we're going to have him live on Saturday. That episode will probably come out next week. So stay tuned, and thank you to everybody that's tuned in so far. Let's jump into it, Shovit. We have a lot of football we need to unpack. First game on the board. We had 2 games on Saturday. Let's start with the first one. The Oakland Raiders, the 5th seed in the AFC, traveled to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals here. Joe Burrow and the high-flying, high-powered offense of Cincinnati with that receiving core, that running back. And again, the tenacity and the demeanor of a leader like Joe Burrow playing at home, first home game since 2015 for the city of Cincinnati. So pressure was on the home team. Pressure was on the second-year quarterback. But the Cincinnati Bengals came in here at 5.5-point favorites and delivered. They win the game 26-19 final at home. Under 49 comes in. Cincinnati, again, with how they've played all year, on the backs of their offense, on the backs of Joe Burrow, basically taking them to the promised land and winning their first playoff game since 2015. Big deal for them. So it's nice to get kind of the monkey off your back, if you will. And for a guy like Joe Burrow, it definitely did not seem like it was his first playoff start.
It didn't. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, man, that combo and that duo is so scary for a fan of the Steelers in the AFC North. I mean, they're here to stay, and they are solidifying that dynamic duo and that threat that Joe Burrow's arm brings, and Jamar Chase's ability to catch the ball no matter where he's at. And this game, to me, kudos to the Bengals, was a lot closer than I actually thought it would be. Raiders were doing a very good job on third downs in the red zone, stopping the Bengals from getting touchdowns. Unfortunately, the Raiders aren't able to score themselves either. Field goals is what they came out with. And I think the touchdowns that they had was with Zay Jones, who's looking really good. You've got to like Zay Jones if for the Raiders and as a number one receiver. I know they have Renfro. They've got Waller as well, who was huge for them. But ultimately, in the end, you have the chance to tie the game. And Derek Carr with 15 seconds left throws the interception. And that's kind of what led to the game being over. But it was down to the wire to the very last minute. Kudos to the Raiders. They did all that they could, but they just weren't able to get into the red zone as much as they would have liked to put them in a chance to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. You're speaking facts, because the Raiders came into this game all season. They've been on our kind of teetering the fake news, not fake news list. And I doubted them even heading into the playoffs, or thinking they were going to lose week 18 against the Chargers and not make the playoffs. They proved me wrong. I was hesitant to back them this game. I didn't know if they would really show up or if the Bengals would just kind of play them out of the stadium. But again, like you said, kudos to them, right? This season was such a roller coaster for them. So for them to still end up in a playoff spot, playing a competitive playoff game on the road, regardless of coming away with the loss. Again, I'm not one to be like moral victories. I'm not one to be like, oh, well, you make the playoffs, it's a winning year. But weren't they the first team since I don't know how long that fired a coach mid-season and ended up making the playoffs? I mean,
yeah. Rick Bisaccia or how?
Bisaccia, yeah. The head coach, dude.
He's got to stay.
He's got some intangible leadership qualities and characteristics that I don't think you can teach. Now, who knows if that's sustainable for a whole season? I don't know his, I don't know what his resume looks like and if he's, suited to be that. But I'm sure you saw after he lost something that he did that I've never seen any head coach ever do or anybody even think about doing. He hand wrote letters to every single player on the Raiders roster, thanking them for everything they've done, how hard they worked to get there, et cetera. I mean, dude, that's the shit that not everybody does, he didn't have to do that. He went out of his way to do that. And at the end of the day, it just shows how much he cared, how much he took on that interim head coach job, because it was just given to him. I don't know that he was completely ready for it, but he ran with it. This team strung off 4 wins to end the season, backdoor into the playoffs. And like I said, played a competitive game at Cincinnati against an incredibly impressive offense. So yeah, for not having a ton of moral victories and silver linings, I would say the Raiders all in all had a relatively successful season. I mean, again, given where they started, right, all of the things that transpired, Henry Ruggs going to prison, there was just so many things that could have let this team fold and be like, you know what, let's just fold. Let's look forward to next year. Let's look for a draft pick, etc. And no, I mean, they made the playoffs. And then the last thing, Shovit, I'll say is there's some uncertainty heading into the offseason. Obviously, is the interim head coach going to be the guy that gets the job? I know they're already openly interviewing other head coaching candidates. So I don't know if they're just doing their due diligence to see if the guy's in-house or if it's somebody else. And then they also just recently relieved their general manager, Mike Mayock, of his duties after 3 years. So despite all of that, right? I mean, when you're getting rid of a GM, I feel like that's like the writing's on the wall like weeks before it happens, right? So you just have to imagine just all the bullshit that was going on in that locker room all year. And for Rich Bisaccia, I hope I'm not butchering his name, to step in and drown out that noise, win 4 games in a row, get his team ready to play in the playoffs, man. I think he deserves a look. I mean, I don't know if they're going to keep him on as whatever offensive coordinator or just whatever coach possible, but I'm incredibly impressed with them. And I think they have nothing to be, ashamed of.
Absolutely. I think he's a definition of a player's coach. And even his schemes involve Derek Carr kind of being more in line with the preparation process and knowing what kind of schemes they're going to put out there. So I think that just sort of corralled this team and brought them together. And that tenacity was the reason they got as far as they did. I would say that there's a strong case to keep him there, just given his track record since John Gruden was fired. And you're like the GM out. It'll be interesting to see what they actually end up doing though.
Yeah. And I know the other aspect of that is I want to say Derek Carr is on the final year of his contract. 2021. Okay. So no, he's got 1 year left of his contract. I believe either he's got 1 year left or he's actually a free agent. So I know there's uncertainty there because he's going to be 31 years old heading into next year. He's not like a definitive, you pay the guy, right? I mean, it's just so weird that he has the talent, but sometimes the intangibles aren't there. And there's late game situations where it just seems like he should do it. Like they have the team to do it. And for whatever reason, they just don't. So I don't know if that's, again, a product of everything else, the horrible running game early in the season, all the other BS. But I want to say, as a Viking fan, if the opportunity presented itself that Derek Carr was available, especially on a cheaper contract than a Kirk Cousins would, I mean, I would definitely give him a look. I think he wants to win, right? He's got a good heart. He's a good guy. He plays good football. I just don't know if he plays elite enough football, but I still think he's top 15 at least of 30 quarterbacks in the NFL.
I think easily you can definitely put him up there. We've seen some pretty bad quarterbacks throughout this year, and Derek Carr, although not flashy, is streaky at times. Just looking at his QBR ratings, they're not below, 90, or they're not below 80 for most of the games. I know last game he threw that interception, had that sack. I don't really fault the interception, nor do I fault the sack either. I think that it just kind of played out that way at the end of the game. It was a tight window and the defense ended up getting that ball. So yeah, you got to be happy with Derek Carr's performance. The Josh Jacobs things was kind of the whole reason they weren't as successful, I think, more than Derek Carr not being as good. I think he did well this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely a lot of question marks surrounding the Raiders as they head into the offseason. The Cincinnati Bengals, again, impressive victory. They are going to be traveling to Tennessee this next week, taking on the number 1 seed, the Tennessee Titans. Mike Vrabel came out today and did say that Derrick Henry was on the field getting limited contact reps. So they're going to progress him along as the week progresses. And I mean, if he's ready for Saturday, that doesn't bode well for the Bengals. But nonetheless, I think the Bengals have, at least for the time being, shut down some naysayers, even in myself, right? I was waiting for the collapse. I knew their defense at times looked really shaky this year, but against the Raiders, when it mattered most, the defense has stepped up and made enough key plays that, the offense can kind of protect and make disappear because the offense is so dynamic. So that's going to be a big game with the Bengals, a team that has a bunch of receiving core weapons, and Joe Burrow versus a Tennessee team that, despite not having Derrick Henry, still love to run the ball and now might have Derrick Henry back. And I mean, that's just going to mean they're going to love to run the ball even more. So that's going to be a great matchup. The second game on the board on Saturday, the New England Patriots came into the playoffs here reeling in a little bit, just losing 3 out of their final 4 games or so. After starting the season so hot, after being the number 1 seed at one point, after leading the division at one point, they ended up losing the division on the final week to the Bills, who ended up getting this home field, ended up securing the 3rd seed, and ended up hosting this home game against their divisional rivals, who they saw for the 3rd time this year. The spread was only 4 points for Buffalo at home, over under 44. And I mean, as a statement victory comes, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills absolutely just destroy the Patriots. They blow Belichick out of the stadium, 47-17 final, 4-point spread covered easily. They cover the over by themselves. Josh Allen, 5 touchdown passes, was it? I mean, he had an insane game. I think we've been really, really hard on Josh Allen all year because he has the skill set to be the Mahomes tier quarterback, but sometimes the accuracy is not there. Sometimes the decision-making is not there, but I think he put a lot of that to rest in this playoff victory.
Yeah, it was a cold, cold day in Buffalo where the Patriots went in to try to get the W for the 2nd time this year. But unfortunately, the one thing that was hot were the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, shit.
And they were playing lights out. Josh Allen was making guys trip over and fall. Like, it was amazing to see how he plays with no fear. Like, the guy is he's breaking ankles all over the field. And then
as a white quarterback.
Exactly. Who would have thought? And the greatest thing about all of this is he's getting help from Singletary, the running game that we didn't see in the beginning of the season. And then second of all, this rise of McKenzie, I feel like more teams are like using their wide receivers to run the ball. They're like following the Deebo Samuel.
Oh yeah, it's definitely upticked in the recent weeks for sure.
Yeah, this copycat NFL, teams that are out there, it works. You can hand the ball to a receiver who is fast, get that outside, be able to sweep the ball, things like that. And McKenzie, we saw a lot of that. We saw Gabriel Davis get touchdowns. We saw, I believe, Stephon Diggs had a touchdown as well. So I mean, everybody was getting the ball for Buffalo, and on top of that, their defense, like Mac Jones. He was not able to get any sort of rhythm. I think it's Micah Hyde who had that sick interception.
Oh my God, looked like a receiver, like just coming halfway across the field. Dude, when Mac Jones threw that, I think everybody was like touchdown, like perfect pass, guys wide open. Yeah. And Micah Hyde over the shoulder, running full speed. Dude, just one of the better interceptions you'll see. He looked like a receiver.
Yeah. He really did. He came out of nowhere. I mean, I thought that was a great throw that Mac Jones made. But after that, it kind of just set the tone for the Buffalo Bills to get more and more touchdowns and easily win this game.
Yeah, I mean, this game just got out of hand too early. And we talked about the Patriots all year. They're a very, very structured, formulaic, recipe type team, right? They need to run the ball. They need to establish the run game. They need to control the clock. They need to give Mac Jones very, very comfortable passes, and they play good defense. Well, they went down 14-0 in the first quarter, right? So all of that gets thrown out the window. So at what point do you realize that your defense is not capable of stopping this offense? And you have to all of a sudden be like, you know what? We can't afford to run the ball because every time we give them the ball, they score. So we have to be able to put up points. And 27-3 at halftime. I mean, God, it never felt like the Patriots were in this game. It just felt like from the start, the Bills were just operating at a different level, different motor, just everything. So again, Josh Allen, 5 touchdowns, 308 yards passing, ran it for another 66 yards. You mentioned Singletary, Shovit. The Bills had a great start, and then they kind of disappeared because for whatever reason they stopped or didn't even attempt to run the football. So they just became very, very one-dimensional. Mm-hmm. And then now the resurgence, they're picking their spots and they're running. Josh Allen obviously can get it done with his legs. So they know that they can run the read option. And at that point, it's going to work because no matter who you stop, the other guy getting the ball can make plays. So they have a nice little piece in Singletary. You mentioned the receivers. They're phenomenal. All of a sudden, Buffalo seems like they're getting right and they're getting hot at the right time. And this is exactly what you want if you're a team that's coming into the playoffs, coming into the season with a ton of expectations. I mean, it's not going to get any easier for them, unfortunately. I mean, this might be the toughest game they're going to have to face, as they're going to be traveling to Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs here next Sunday. So, I mean, a Mahomes Allen special in Arrowhead. I mean, what more can a football fan want?
Yep. No, this is going to be awesome. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. And then, it's just the way that the Bills played gets you even more excited because, we've seen Kansas City. We saw what they did to the Steelers. I know they're only the Steelers, but they've been on a tear the second half of the season. And the Bills, I'm glad they're getting things figured out and getting ready to play the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. Again, that's going to be an impressive matchup. Number 2 against number 3 seed in the AFC. High-powered offenses, great defenses. Again, you mentioned the Bills. Kudos to their defense. No Tre'Davious White, and it didn't even matter. I mean, shutdown corner, not playing, doesn't even matter. I guess one bright spot, the Patriots season's over, so I'll highlight a couple of key pieces for them. Mac Jones, up and down, but, all in all, we'd say he probably had one of the more successful, if not maybe the most successful this year as far as rookie quarterbacks go, given the situation he was in. Obviously, we've talked about Davis Mills, but I'd say out of all of the touted rookie quarterbacks, Mac Jones had probably had the best year as a whole. So very fortunate to be in that situation in the Belichick system. But nonetheless, kudos to him. We'll look to see him, progress, get better, move forward, take that next step and make more of those deep throws, make more of those intermediate throws and, not be just a quarterback that manages the game, because I still see more in his future. I think if he can get more on his plate, the sky's the limit. And obviously they had running backs this year, Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson. They had good years. They're up and coming. Kendrick Bourne was a nice little piece for them. He had 2 touchdowns this game. He had both of their touchdowns. So, silver linings, bright spots, players that maybe you can look to build upon in heading into the offseason and into next season. So again, 10-7 for the Patriots, 10-8 after this loss to end the season. I don't think Belichick ever considers making the playoffs a winning season with, the kind of dynasty they've built, but also he's probably smart enough to situationally know that the best quarterback of all time left his team. He had a rookie quarterback step in and they still made the playoffs. So again, I think you still have to count that as a win. So a good season for the Patriots. Buffalo, Kansas City, give me more of that next week. Let's kick it into Sunday. First game on the board. The Philadelphia I was about to say Phillies because honestly, I don't even think the Eagles showed up this week. It might as well have been the Phillies. The Philadelphia Eagles were nowhere to be found in Tampa Bay. I think they waited till maybe the final 5 minutes to act like they gave a shit. Buccaneers hosting the Eagles here, 9-point favorites at home. Over-under was sitting at 46. Buccaneers dominate this game, 31-15. It was not even as close as the score indicates. Tampa Bay dominated this from start to finish. They cover the 9-point spread. Over 46 actually pushes on the dot. Tom Brady takes care of business. We talked all week about, receivers, injuries, who's going to be there. And again, wouldn't you know it, the old reliables, the guys that he's been counting on for, years and years, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been counting on for years. Good old Mike Evans, Gronkowski making timely plays, but it was the usual suspects for Brady and gang.
Yeah, usual suspect for Brady and gang. Although the running back, Keyshawn Vaughn gets to start. He gets into the end zone one time too. So,
and Bernard. I think Bernard also got in the end zone one time.
So they were able to run the ball and pass the ball. I mean, Tom Brady, gosh, that guy just ages like fine wine, man. He's amazing to see.
The picture that they show when they every game now, it seems like, because he's so old and it's so crazy. Every game they show like his draft rookie quarterback picture and then his picture of this year. He looks younger this year than he looked when he was a rookie quarterback.
There's something to this TB12 diet that I'm like, I should have gotten into a long time ago.
Never too late, man.
It's never too late. Yeah. But I think, the Eagles, we talked about them being a sort of like a run first team all year. And if they are down big, which they were down by 17 points and Jalen,
they're actually down by 31.
They were down
altogether. It was 31-0 at one point.
So down by 31. If Jalen Hurts has to be that quarterback that leads them back to victory by throwing the ball to, Devontae Smith, Goddard, I don't think that it's going to be a very slim chance and tough chance for the Eagles to win the game. Dallas Goedert had a costly missed drop. Just straight into his hands. You gotta help your quarterback a little bit. But I think that Jalen Hurts is a young quarterback. He's in his second year. And there were times where I was watching the Buccaneers play. They would play this defense they were playing very back. The cornerback was playing really far ahead from the receiver from the line, right? And so I think it was Sanders. Sanders was down on the right side of the field. Sanders gets the ball the first play, and even the commentators like, throw it to Sanders. He's open. And then on the same drive in fourth down, the same defense. However, this time you have another, I want to say, a nickel cornerback that's like just baiting that play. You've already played back once, so you think that ball can go there. And Jalen Hurts sees that nickel coming in, and he hesitates, throws a pick on that same play. So it's like things like that I don't know if Jalen Hurts has seen enough reps, been able to throw the ball enough to be a better quarterback. We know what he can do with his legs. So I think that this offseason, it's going to be one of those things that he works on, being able to read the defense better. But all in all, we knew that the Bucs were a better team. They came out lights out, and continuing on to the next round.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't think the Eagles put Hurts in a position to succeed this year, because early in the season, they were putting everything on his plate. They were like, we're going to throw 600 times a game. We don't have any running backs. We don't believe in running the football. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? Scratch that, Jalen. We're just going to run it 65 times a game. We're barely going to throw it. Well, he's a quarterback. He needs the best of both worlds. Like, if he's not throwing the ball, he's not getting into a rhythm. If he's not running the ball, he's going to get killed, because the pass rush is just going to destroy him, because they throw the ball every damn play. So I just don't think Philadelphia put Hurts in a position to be successful. And despite that, I mean, just statistically and fantasy quarterback wise, Hurts put an incredible performance together this year, right? So there is a lot to like from Jalen heading into the offseason. I still, I think everybody still has their reservations if he can be the pocket quarterback when he's not scrambling. Can he read through progressions? Can he make those throws that all of these other quarterbacks can make? Does he have the timing down, the accuracy, all of that? So we know he's got the athleticism. We know he can run the ball. That's just the added dynamic in the NFL to still being structurally a quarterback that can throw the football. So, I don't know.
You can't write him off yet, because I feel like in the first year that Josh Allen came into this league, we were kind of in that same sort of situation.
Yeah.
A lot of running plays that he would run the ball often, but he wasn't as great as a quarterback. And then kind of in the offseason, and then the next year, he sort of emerged, got a lot more accurate. Sophomore year was, one of the better Josh Allen years for him. So Jalen Hurts, I guess, he just kind of needs to work on his mechanics a little bit more. And get
him some help. Get him some fucking help. Get him some people that can catch the football. I mean, I think because you had Smith, because Shishot had Jalen Hurts, because I had talked a little bit about Jalen Reagor heading into the year, we all kept a pretty close eye on the Eagles all year. And my God, that team just dropped passes left and right. And I mean, outside of Devontae Smith, they had nobody. They had absolutely nobody to throw the football to. Quez Watkins was he's a nice third, fourth guy, but outside of that, they have no big target. And then obviously you have your tight end in Goddard, but you still need that receiver that can, that you can be like, you know what, it's 3rd and 7, man. I need you to get open. I'm going to hit you. And he's like, yeah, I got you, man. They don't have that. And for a young quarterback, having a safety blanket is so essential. So,
not only is Reagor dropping passes, he's also muffing punts.
Dude, his confidence has just been shot, I'm sure. At this point, I don't know, man. It's tough. I mean, obviously he got the Reagor. I don't think he wants his entire career to just be remembered as the guy who got incorrectly drafted ahead of Justin Jefferson. I think he wants to make his own name for himself, but shit, that was a tough year for him, unfortunately. And I don't know, man. Your receiver in the NFL. I obviously have to imagine that receivers in the NFL spend the offseason catching footballs, right? They have to, right? I don't think many receivers are just resting on their laurels. I'm already in the NFL. I already catch footballs. I don't need to practice, but there are some guys that need the extra practice. And Jalen Reagor is absolutely, if he wants to carve out any sort of NFL career future, even if it's just, a rotational guy, but if he wants longevity in the NFL, man, he's got to get some hands, because right now they're piss poor. So the Eagles obviously end their season. They end their season 9-9. Again, I think out of all the teams that made the playoffs, I mean, in the NFC anyways, we knew that the Eagles were the worst of them as a 7 seed, kind of backdooring in. So wasn't expecting a ton from them, to be honest with you, but 31-0 heading into the fourth quarter. I mean, it makes you question why the hell the NFL put a 7 seed in the playoffs. So whatever. Tampa Bay obviously gets a big matchup next week. They are hosting the LA Rams, who we'll talk more about their game, but that's going to be another spectacular matchup on paper. Just a lot to talk about there. So we'll obviously have more to talk about that. Let's recap the next game on the board on Sunday. Oh boy, the Dallas Cowboys are hosting a playoff game. Stop me if you've heard that one before. They are the number 3 seed this year, so they were, again, getting to host a playoff game in Jerry's World in that $1.5 billion stadium, where you saw the video where like 4 hours before they opened up the stadium, and it literally looked like it was Black Friday shopping because everybody was like stampeding into the stadium. And I'm like, I guess unless they're trying to get really close to like watch the practice or see the players, I'm like, why the hell are people running into the stadium as if like, there's shit on sale that they need to like be the first to get? I didn't really understand that, but again, whatever. Cowboys fans will be Cowboys fans. So again, they were hosting a playoff game. San Francisco 49ers came into town. Two teams that have kind of a storied rivalry, just in the sense that they've met in very, very big playoff games. And they're two teams that have won a ton in the past, right? So they're atop some of the greatest franchises of all time. So big matchup here. Cowboys came into this game at home, 3-point favorites. Over under was 51. We talked about it last week, Shovet. I was like, man, I do not want to see the Dallas Cowboys hosting a playoff game and just laying a dud. And despite how close the final score ended up being, I completely feel like this was a dud performance laid by the Dallas Cowboys. Final score 23-17. The 49ers win this game on the road as 3-point dogs. And God, I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, after grinding and gritting in all of the promise of the regular season, 12 games they won, one of the best seasons they've had in the regular season, despite some, on and off play from Dak Prescott, from their offense, their entire team not completely clicking at the same time down the stretch, and they still had won 12 games. They were still getting to host a playoff game. I just think they drew an unfortunate matchup in the 49ers, who were coming in really, really hot. And the 49ers head coach, Kyle Shanahan, is a mastermind. So it's just not an ideal matchup for them. And I mean, it showed in their defense, not necessarily being able to stop the other team, despite, they kicked a lot of field goals, but they were moving the ball with ease. And then their offense, just so many 3-and-outs, just so many drives where they could not get anything going, no sort of rhythm. It was just incredibly frustrating to see. Even just as a football fan, but, I actually feel for Cowboys fans, because again, you're getting to be in the playoffs. We know, living here, Cowboys fans act like every year is Super Bowl for the Cowboys, right? Which, to some good, to some bad, but having those expectations and then still putting together 12 wins in the regular season, only to lose a first-round game against a wild card team that you're hosting at home. I mean, and it's incredibly disappointing.
It really is. And yeah, you're right. The Cowboys fans had a lot of hope and anticipation from this team. Super Bowl was the expectation, but as we've seen with their schedule and the games that they played, they hadn't beaten really good teams. They were beating teams in their own division, NFC East, which isn't to say anything at all. So with that being said, I anticipated the 49ers to win this game. And part of the reason was because I just didn't feel like Dak Prescott and that offense were clicking in the later half of the season. They're a very opportunistic team. Their defense needs to get interceptions, force turnovers for Prescott and the Cowboys to have some sort of rhythm and scores in the offense. And they didn't get much of that. You had one interception in the third quarter, which I don't want to say that, and that was just Garoppolo being Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Jimmy being Jimmy. And it's just very, typical Jimmy throw. But at the end of the day, what the Cowboys couldn't do on their defense was stop the run. Stop Deebo Samuel. They couldn't stop Elijah Mitchell. Guys like Brandon Ayuk were slanting across the middle of the field, getting first down. They were moving the ball. And Robbie Gould, their kicker, kudos to him. Guy hasn't missed a field goal in the postseason. So when you just keep putting up points, and the Cowboys, who are vulnerable to not being able to score as many points, you're going to have a better chance to win the game. And that stadium, I got to talk about that stadium. I know you brought it up earlier. They spend billions of dollars for a stadium to face east to west. Now, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not gonna. I probably wouldn't have known that it shouldn't go east to west. But I'm not the one making those decisions, Jerry Jones.
Yeah, and you weren't getting paid millions of dollars to make those decisions. So at that point, investing that much money, you wouldn't have thought about like little things like that. I mean, it's insane. It's insane that you paid $1.5 billion for a stadium, and there's a certain time in the day where the sun is literally just straight into your eye socket, where you literally nobody could catch that football coming through that sun. It's impossible.
No, and so they were unfortunate to be on facing that side of the field where the sun is just blaring in the receiver's eyes. Second half, you're like, oh, we'll get the other side. We'll be switched. There's no sun. I mean, it's like 5 o'clock. It's already dark at that point. So, 49ers just kind of ate that up. And I'm sure they felt like, we'll take it. This is on you guys.
There's one thing that stood out to me this game, Shova, that I think despite all of just kind of surface level stuff we saw, really plays into why this game ended up the way it did. One big thing we talked about the Dallas Cowboys. What was the strength of their defense?
Turnovers
and pass rush, right? The good players on their defense are on their defensive line outside of Trayvon Diggs, right? Outside of Trayvon Diggs, Micah Parsons is lining up on the edge. You have Randy Gregory on the edge. You have DeMarcus Lawrence on the edge. They had 0 sacks. They had 0 sacks on Jimmy Garoppolo, right? And I mean, we can get into the numbers to see how many QB pressures they had, et cetera, all that stuff. But we talked about their defense being opportunistic. Sacks are opportunistic, right? Sacks can create forced fumbles, can create scoops for touchdowns. Like, we envisioned Dallas winning games that way because that's what they were doing all year. Micah Parsons was being ridiculous. Trayvon Diggs was being ridiculous. But in a game where they did have that interception, which led to one of their touchdowns. But I mean, outside of that, they couldn't sack Jimmy G. They couldn't create any turnovers. And like you said, they just could not stop the run. So the Cowboys, the 49ers did a great job of controlling the clock. They had the ball 7-8 more minutes than the Cowboys did. And they just did a really good job of converting on third down, 6 of 13 on third down, almost 50%. So extending those drives, milking those clock, keeping Dak off the field. And dude, I guess we didn't even talk about the final play of the game. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that play? Because there's so many ways that I can dissect how that could have transpired, but I just want to know kind of where your thought process was there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you should. That was a very risky play. And if it was going to be called, it needed to be executed perfectly. And what that means is Dak runs the ball 10, 12 yards, gets down, gives the ball to the referee, and then gets in line. And then maybe you have 1 second left to hike the ball. Dak just kept going.
Yeah.
And then the ref comes in and bumps into them. And, you have all this commotion and time runs out. So I think that maybe the call was okay, because then if you do spike the ball, you have a chance for a Hail Mary, and you can throw it deep. But it's just poor execution.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. I guess you think about when you call a play like that, like you said, the margin for error is none. There is no margin for error, right? Because you don't have timeouts, right? If you run out of time, you cannot spike the ball, because that's exactly what happened. They ran out of time. And Dak cannot get baited. That's the biggest thing that happened here, is the 49ers playing their defense on the outside, baiting the inside. They could have literally just kept backpedaling and let Dak just keep running forward. And I feel like Dak unawareingly would have been like, I can get more yards. But what needed to happen is, and I don't know if this did, is when you're calling that play, whether it's Kellen Moore, whether it's Mike McCarthy, or however they discuss this, they need to be like, Dak, no matter what, you need to go down and slide at about 10 seconds. You need, this is your buffer. This is where you have to go down. So regardless of if you see a shit ton of open space that makes it seem like maybe you can get in for a touchdown, just know that that's not possible. That's not going to happen. And so you have to have that situational awareness. And because you're the quarterback, unfortunately, that's your situation, because you're running the ball. So you have to be situationally aware. Like you said, if he would have just, even if he got the same amount of yards that he did for that play, if he just kept the ball and then handed it to the referee, probably would have made all the difference, right? And so in that little tiny spot where there's no margin for error, even before that play, I personally don't trust a guy like Dak Prescott. He has not proven to me that he deserves trust in that situation, right? And again, this has nothing to do with the play. Obviously, it's easy to sit down and say that after the play has already happened, but like we talked about the last 4 or 5 games, Dak hadn't looked right. Like he had a really great 51-point performance against an Eagles that were playing a bunch of backups, but he hadn't looked right. And so it just makes it incredibly interesting that you had the ball like the 40-yard line. Obviously, Dak can throw 40 yards into the end zone. That's not hard for an NFL quarterback. But they decided to get 10 to 15 more yards so that a 25-yard, 30-yard throw would have been a little bit easier. But at that point, you're still only getting one play if you run that. Whereas from the 40, you might get 2 shots into the end zone. So I don't know. Unless you're running that really quick out pass out of bounds, anything in the middle of the field just makes no sense. And I'll take it one step further. All it took was that one play. I feel like, and all rumblings I'm hearing on Twitter and everywhere today is people are backpedaling on the idea of Kellen Moore being the next head coach for their team because they're like, well, if Kellen Moore is going to call some kind of idiotic play like that down the stretch, what makes us think he has the ability to lead an entire football team?
There were plenty of plays that he was calling that was mind-blowing. I mean, you can't put that on Kellen Moore's shoulders. Actually, I don't even know whose shoulders you put that on. I mean, you mentioned a very good point. If they should have just told Dak Prescott to kind of sit 10 yards or 10 seconds and then go down and maybe they did or they didn't. So I find it hard to put the blame on anyone in that situation. But moving forward of not having Kellen Moore as your coach, there's that play where I think Cedric Wilson catches the ball and then he laterals it to I want to say CeeDee Lamb. Like plays like that where CeeDee Lamb he's really good at being an offense coordinator. He's innovative, and I don't think you can discredit this play for that. And speaking of I guess mental, I don't want to say mental breakdowns, but just breakdown in general for the Cowboys. How about the 15 penalties? How about the neutral zone infractions?
Oh my God.
The false starts.
The things you can control.
I was talking to a guy when I was watching the Cowboys game at the bar, and he's like, you know what? I'm okay with these neutral zone infractions because it shows that they're trying to get to the quarterback. They want to beat. And I'm like, okay, 1 time, 2 times. Like, when do you say enough is enough? Like, this is your play. It's playoff football. You cannot make these stupid mistakes.
Yeah, dude, they were 3rd and 5s and they neutral zone infraction, automatic first down. It's just such costly penalties in such timely situations. It just, again, when you look back on this game and the way it didn't go right, it always boils down to intangibles, which boils down to coaching, timing, time management, stuff like that. That's always coaching, right? Because at the end of the day, they have the final say in that. So I don't know. Mike McCarthy has been known to kind of be wonky down the stretch. That's why his regime with the Packers ended and et cetera. So I don't know, man. I don't know what if they just fire Mike McCarthy and they're like, Kellen, you're promoted. You're our new head coach. I mean, I don't know. And I know Kellen Moore's conducting a lot of head coaching interviews. So the Vikings being one of them. So
there are jobs out there with all the firings. So
yeah.
I mean, if I was Kellen Moore, I would stay far away from Dallas as possible.
Yeah. I think you jump at the first sight of a potential offense that you could lead that doesn't have to be under the helm of a Jerry Jones.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, the 49ers, again, impressive victory. They get to travel to Lambeau to take on the Green Bay Packers next week. That's always a great matchup to me, just with the Aaron Rodgers and his history with San Francisco, getting passed up in the draft, et cetera. Like we talked about that fuel to the fire that it seems like every time he plays the 49ers, they have, and they played a really close game the first time around this year. So Packers did end up winning that game, but the 49ers put up a fight. And with that, the way they're jiving and gelling and the way Shanahan runs that offense, man, I don't count them out in any week right now. They are the definition of a perennial wild card team that could just get hot and run into the Super Bowl. So that's going to be an exciting matchup. The final game on Sunday night was Sunday Night Football. Show that Big Ben and his farewell tour might have officially come to an end in Arrowhead as the Steelers traveled to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs here. Chiefs coming in at the number 2 seed. Steelers did squeak into the playoffs with the number 7 seed with 9-7-1. Chiefs did come into this game as 12.5-point favorites. So Vegas really did not expect this to be much of a game. Over under was 46. And unfortunately, credit to the Steelers for the first 16 to 18 minutes. Their defense played pretty freaking good, man. I mean, it was 0-0 for the first like 12 minutes of the game, but you knew that wasn't going to last. You were just really, really hopeful that maybe Pittsburgh's offense could get something on the board to build some momentum. But unfortunately, I guess it just was not in the cards. 42-21 final. The Chiefs take this victory, 12.5-point favorites at home, cover that easily, over 46 hits. It was just honestly kind of like a battle of David versus Goliath, where like you have the Steelers literally giving it their all. Their defense looked like they came to play, man. They came prepared. They were just fucking all over the field. TJ Watt was everywhere. Devin Bush. TJ Watt looked like he was single-handedly going to win this fucking game for them. But eventually the the Chiefs offense was just too much to handle.
No, absolutely. It was 0-0 in the middle of the second quarter. And then I believe it was McKinnon that muffs the ball. And Cam Hayward comes in, tackles him. The ball drops. TJ Watt picks it up. Touchdown. First score on the board is a defensive touchdown, 7-0 by the Steelers. And at that point, I was going insane. It was
rightfully so.
Yeah, because they were making the stops to Patrick Mahomes that they needed to all of the first quarter and half of the second quarter. But that kind of just started this, charade of points from the Kansas City Chiefs. Guys like McKinnon ran the ball, and we've been notorious for not being able to stop the run. We couldn't stop Kelsey after that. Pringle gets in the touchdown, and it was just easy pickings after that for the Kansas City Chiefs. But, kudos to the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. We did all that we could, at least in the first half of the game, to try to limit the points from the Kansas City Chiefs. But, they're the number 2 AFC team for a reason. They've got the personnel to move forward and get to that promised land. So it was going to be a very tough outing for the Steelers, but I'm just glad that, Big Ben went out there, did all that he could, gave it to guys like James Washington, Deontay Johnson. Please continue to working on your catching.
Deontay Johnson, Hollywood Brown. There's like a list of Jalen Reagor. There's a list of receivers that need to we should start a receiver camp for all these guys that clearly can't catch the football and be like, hey guys, just come here.
Yeah.
And we'll just give you guys like Chick-fil-A, and we'll just get like those machines, and we'll let you catch 5,000 passes all day, every day.
Right.
We'll just feed them into the thing, man. At the end of the day, these receivers have so much freaking talent, and they're all built so similarly, like the Hollywood Browns, the Deontay's, they're quick
and shifty. Yeah.
They can get open at will. If they just had reliable hands, bro, they would be so next level. So you're right, man. Deontay, he's awesome. He's awesome when he's right. And he was right for about 8-10 weeks this year. Like the first 8 to 10 weeks, I mean, I don't think he had a drop pass. And then the latter part of the season, it's been tough. I mean, I don't want to give him all of the fault and blame. I know Big Ben's arm has started to deceive him. The timing just didn't feel like it was there with Big Ben in any quarter or any of the receivers all year. So kind of just a wonky year, if you will. But for them to scratch and claw, just as I mentioned, on the other side, who scratched and clawed and made the playoffs. But for them, for the Raiders, right? The Raiders, just like that, for the Steelers with the season that they had, with how deficient you knew their defense, their run defense was atrocious, right? The Chargers have a similar run defense, and there's a reason they didn't make the playoffs. Despite Big Ben's arm failing him, they still managed to make the playoffs. So again, credit to Mike Tomlin. I don't think for a second, as a neutral fan outside looking in, I ever doubt Tomlin's leadership, Tomlin's ability to get his players prepared and kind of get that locker room corralled, regardless of the almost pretty much insurmountable matchup that they had upon them. So again, with Najee Harris, with Deontay, you have TJ Watt, obviously, you have Freiermuth. Oh yes, the Muth. Hell yeah, I love the Muth. With some of these players as cornerstones heading into the offseason, quarterback's going to be a big question. I'm glad that I think Mike Tomlin has put any rumblings to rest. I don't see any kind of shakeup from that front, at least from my perspective. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like they're going to head into the offseason evaluating obviously a quarterback and then kind of building around their pieces.
Yeah. As of right now, what Mike Tomlin is saying is that Dwayne Haskins and Mason Rudolph are going to be battling for that number one QB, starting role at quarterback position, but more to come, I guess, once the free agency opens up and draft comes around, we'll know more about.
And some of these bigger name veteran quarterbacks, there are some links to the Steelers. Pittsburgh seems like a very appealing destination for like a Rodgers or a Wilson. You get to play under Mike Tomlin. You have a solid roster. I mean, obviously there's deficiencies, but you just head into the draft, shoring up an offensive line and maybe getting some defensive tackles. And then again, you'll have some money probably in the offseason to sign some free agents. So the pieces are absolutely there. And again, even in a year where you'll look back and be like, this might've been the worst running defense Steelers I've seen in 25 years. They still won 9 fucking games, bro.
Yeah.
So that's incredibly impressive. That to me is successful coaching despite, a clear deficiency. So credit to the Steelers. Again, honestly, all in all, pretty happy for the season they had. Congrats, Big Ben, 2-time Super Bowl winner, first ballot Hall of Famer. Much respect for that guy. He just came in, played hard, very unorthodox, right? Never the prototypical quarterback, but I think that was the beauty of Big Ben Roethlisberger.
That's right.
So the Chiefs, we talked about it. The Chiefs are going to be hosting Buffalo. My God, what a matchup, dude. I'm getting like just jitters thinking about that Mahomes Allen matchup, man. I want to make popcorn already. So that's going to be a beautiful, beautiful game. But let's recap the final game, Shovit, our Monday Night Football matchup. 2 teams playing in the same division, coming off very, very funky endings to the season. The Arizona Cardinals and the LA Rams hosting the Rams hosting the Cardinals here in LA, 4 seed against 5 seed. Not much disparity in their records, not much disparity in how they ended the season, not much disparity in their overall season, right? Started hot, great team, ton of promise, ended the season really, really rocky, a ton of question marks. And so it was kind of up in the air. Rams came into this game at home, 4-point favorites, over under 49. I personally, to the demise of my own, put too much stock in the Arizona Cardinals. I really, really expected them to bounce back. I expected them to act like they belonged in the playoffs. I expected a big game from Kyler Murray, but I think everything that I expected in this game, the one game only, the exact opposite happened. I mean, the Rams completely dominated this 34-11 from start to finish. At no point was this football game a football game. Rams covered the 4-point spread easily, under 49 hits. This was just really, we talked about the Eagles' piss poor performance. At least we knew who the Eagles were as a football team, and they probably didn't belong. And there was a big mismatch between them and the Bucs. But what do you have to say about the Arizona Cardinals?
Oh man, the Arizona Cardinals, they're one of those teams that started so hot in the beginning of the year, and for whatever reason, maybe it's losing DeAndre Hopkins, the injury to Kyler Murray, the other receivers not stepping up. It just didn't look like the same team that they started with, and even not just on their offense, on their defensive side. And one thing that kind of comes to mind, going back to Kyler Murray, is that I think it was week 2 or week 3 where Kyler Murray had 4 or 5 touchdowns in a game, and in a particular game. And a lot of those throws were very risky, 19% chance or 6% chance based on next gen stats. And I wonder if when you have a player that is getting so, I guess, I don't want to say lucky, but chances of him not making that throw are higher than him making that throw. I wonder if that's an indicator of the quarterback is not as great as you think they are.
Yeah, it's like regressing to the mean, right? Like last year, the whole Mahomes had so many throws that could have been interceptions, but were drops. This year, those drops are becoming interceptions. And that's why it seemed like Mahomes was making a ton more interceptions this year, but risky throws, he's actually made less this year. So it's just diving into the numbers a little bit, but no, that's a great point, right? Kyler is the prototypical scramble around and make something crazy happen, but that comes with the risk. There's a feast or famine side to that. And like you said, towards the latter stages of the season and this game, all of it was famine. I don't think he feasted in any plays like that. So it was very, very disappointing. We talk about DeAndre Hopkins going down and, he's one of top 2, top 3 best receivers in the league, but I still thought that offensive personnel was still good enough despite somebody of that caliber getting hurt, right? I mean, you had Zach Ertz, you had Rondale Moore, you had Christian Kirk, you had AJ Green, you had James Conner and Chase Edmonds, right? So there's enough firepower, and you have Kyler Murray. There's enough firepower there that none of the DeAndre Hopkins injury is no excuse to put up as Dudley of an offensive performance as they did. But like you said, we can't just talk about their offense. I mean, this defense that, coming into this season, I think it had way more expectations than the way they performed. I mean, they couldn't stop anybody. Matthew Stafford was all over the field, downfield guys were open left and right. Anytime it seemed like Arizona, okay, it was 28-0. Arizona scores a touchdown, gets a 2-point conversion. Let's see if we can get a stop. Nope, they couldn't get a stop. They kicked a field goal, right? And so it's like anytime they needed to get any kind of stop or build any momentum, they couldn't. And so, just as much fault the defense as the offense's lack of ability to score. But with that being said, just as much credit to the Rams. Their defense had been bend, don't break all year. We talked about how, they're overrated despite a couple of big names. Dude, they fucking came to play. They came to absolutely play, and they straight dominated Kyler Murray. He was sacked 2 times. He had 2 interceptions. He did not look comfortable at all.
One of those sacks was by Von Miller, who they went out and traded at the mid-season. So that is looking very promising, especially in the playoffs. I know in the middle of the season it wasn't so much, but now Von Miller stepping up. He had not only did he had a sack, he also contributed to 6 tackles on the field as well. But that whole Rams team is kind of just coming together, and they're looking good. They're looking like a great team. And 2 people that we need to mention. One is OBJ. Man, that guy. Like, Cleveland Browns are probably looking at all these games and thinking, "Wow, he wasn't the problem. I think there's another guy."
The fact that we as an organization continue to send other people out and continue to keep the one guy that actually is the problem. I mean, God, the Browns are just such a shit show.
Yeah. OBJ threw the ball to a guy who hasn't been playing all season. Cam Akers comes in, gets a catch from OBJ. And that was like the most wholesome moment of that whole game. I was like, look, 2 players that I'm sure have a lot to prove, one due to injury, one due to Cleveland Browns.
Negligence.
Negligence. Yeah. And to see that, but yeah, everything was just coming into fruition. Credits to guys like Sony Michel. Now they have Cam Akers coming back. This team looks scary heading into Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, and Cooper Kupp didn't even have to have that crazy of a game. Only 5 for 61, still found the end zone, obviously. Yeah. And you talked about these midseason additions, right? We at some point you're like looking at these Rams. At least I am in the middle of the season. I'm like, my God, they're just like trying to put together a bunch of has-been like old dudes on the team, and we've seen how that doesn't work out at times. I mean, I just think back to the 2004 Lakers with the Malone and Peyton year, and so this to me felt similar to that. I'm like, they're putting together. Here comes Von Miller. He's older, blah, blah, blah. Like, he wants to come here and play. And then we talked about OBJ, but it wasn't them. It was the team and the situation they were in. They're coming here and they're thriving. And I'm happy for OBJ, man. He's gotten a ton of scrutiny, and but it's clear that if he can still help a football team and help a football team at a very, very high level. So the Rams look scary at the right time. Their offense is gonna have to take on another really, really formidable offense in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So
one thing I want to add is that their safety got injured, and I don't remember the
Budda Baker.
Was it Budda Baker for the
Cardinals?
No, for the Rams.
Oh, you're talking about the Rams.
Rams safety was injured, and Eric Weddle, who is a 5-time Pro Bowler, Weddle, who's a 5-time Pro Bowler, comes in, and now he's making, he's contributing to that defense. So they're just finding ways to fight adversity, get guys back, and winning, making a solid winning football team. So, I'm looking forward to the Rams rest of the season.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford, I was doubting him heavily. I mean, 2 touchdowns, only 202 yards, but 13 of 17, only 4 incompletions. He was only sacked 1 time. Nearly a perfect passer rating, 154.5, QBR 82.6. So no matter which stat you want to look at, Stafford had an incredible game. The limited throws he made, they were all on the money. They were very timely, and they were a lot of them down the field, right? Chunk yards. So continue to prove me wrong, Matthew Stafford. I mean, hopefully he's evolving from his Lion days and moving on to bigger and better things. But it doesn't, like we said, it doesn't get any easier for them. They got to take on the Buccaneers next week, and that, that run defense, that's difficult. That's going to put more pressure on Stafford to throw, but Matthew Stafford against Tom Brady next week. So, man, these matchups next week are just setting up to be so nice.
Well, the first round, they did beat them in the regular season. The Rams did beat the Buccaneers. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep that.
Tom Brady's going to come back with a vengeance, man. He's going to want some revenge. But those are the games, Shove It. Those are all the games we had this week. 6 total games. I don't think many of them disappointed. Even the ones where the teams pretty much one team didn't show up. It kind of made sense. It was kind of written in stone. The only surprising, I mean, personally, to me, the biggest surprise was the Cardinals' lack of ability to show up the entire weekend of games. I think everything else I kind of expected to go as planned. Maybe not the Bills, maybe not destroy the Patriots as badly as they did. But to me, I thought the 49ers were going to beat the Cowboys as well. But I did not think the Cardinals were just going to not show up. I think that was the biggest surprise to me this whole weekend. Let's end it with some playoff studs and duds. I'll start us off here. My playoff stud this week was a guy that I had on my fantasy team all year, and he's been the definition of consistent. Mike Evans. Mike Evans was my stud this week. They talked about the Buccaneers receiving core being decimated. Antonio Brown is, just off somewhere doing who knows what. And Chris Godwin tore his ACL. He was out for the season. Mike Evans had that hamstring injury, so he was gimpy. But Evans ends up playing, suiting up, 9 for 117 and a touchdown. It just seems like when push comes to shove, when Tom Brady needs to find somebody to bail him out, Mike Evans is there, man. I mean, this is 8, 10, I don't know how many years in a row that he just consistently puts up numbers. He was great with Brady last year, and it seems like they haven't missed a beat. But he was crucial for them in this victory against the Eagles. So to me, Mike Evans was the stud this week. And my dud this week was pretty obvious. Shove It. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. Kyler Murray was a freaking dud, man. Just absolutely just bad, downright bad, plays that, as an NFL quarterback, you're like, what are you doing, man? 19 of 34. He had 19 completions, only 137 yards to show for it. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I think the one thing that surprised me most was the dude only carried the ball twice, only for 6 yards. Mm-hmm. I mean, at some point when you knew the passing game was not working, start to scramble, make something happen. But I just think the Rams did a fantastic job of containing, not really giving him much even decision-making time. Like, it was either they were already on his ass or he was already determined to throw the ball. But just a very, very Dudley performance.
He channeled his inner Carson Wentz by throwing that interception in the end zone. Just take the safety, take the sack. Don't try to throw it while you're in the end zone. And that caused a pick 6. So very, very Dudley performance to say the least.
Yeah.
Okay, so my stud. I'm gonna start out with my stud. It's gonna be Josh Allen. 308 passing yards. His passer rating was 157.8.
Damn, less than a point away from perfect.
Okay, I was just gonna say, what's the
158.3.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, solid performance. But anytime you have 5 touchdowns and 308 yards, no interceptions, you're gonna have that sort of QBR rating. And against the Patriots, whose defense we thought could at least keep up with the Bills, but they weren't able to do that. So great studly performance by Josh Allen. My dud is gonna be Zeke Elliott this week. So 12 attempts for 31 yards, less than 3 yards per attempt. It's coming out that maybe he was playing with a partial tear ACL, something along those lines. But I think he just hurt his own health if he was playing through that injury, because Pollard should have been there. Pollard should have been the guy that they were targeting. And it's crazy that a lot of the Cowboys fans still, believe in Zeke when we've seen enough tape to know that Zeke has kind of lost a step early on. So being the number one running back for that team and only producing these kind of numbers, I would say that was a pretty Dudley performance.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's tough to say, but are the Cowboys heading into next season as Tony Pollard is RB1?
I think that if Kellen Moore is a smart guy, which I think he is, he will definitely start incorporating, Zeke or Pollard into the lineup. But the thing that I'm sure all coaches kind of have to think about is Jerry Jones and, ticket sales and jersey sales. And I wonder if that sort of politics comes in play with Zeke or not. But
yeah, I mean, no, you're right. I was going to say for, so how many ever years now, Zeke has been one of the cornerstones of the Cowboys, the whole feed me thing. Like, he's got his own thing. He bought his linemen those freaking big old golf cart things. He jumped into that little, the charity Salvation Army thing. So yeah, Zeke's had his share of memories and memorial, or I guess remembering games and whatnot. But you're right. I think it's tough as an emotional fan to be able to turn the page, but that's where ownership and people that can't be emotional because it's business decisions need to realize that, Zeke can still be a big piece of this team's future. I obviously contractually, I don't know what they're looking at and everything, but he can still be, they can still do a Pollard Zeke dynamic. It keeps both guys fresh and it helps Pollard's longevity if in fact he is the RB future for them. But I just think Zeke needs to take a step back so that when he's on the field, he can be his freshest, like limit his touches, but when he's touching the ball, he's 100% Zeke. And then that way you get the best of both worlds. So however they want to play that, I still think there's a ton of question marks for the Cowboys. Again, another year without a playoff performance or playoff victory, despite having 12 wins. I think that's still going to ruffle some feathers, whether, Zeke as a running back goes or whether they look to restructure or rebuild around Kellen Moore, whatever that was going to look like. But nonetheless, definitely a Dudley performance for Ezekiel Elliott. I had put together a little game that I wanted to do with you and Shishot, but it doesn't make sense when Shishot's not here because it's a guessing game. And so it would just be me asking questions and you guessing, but we'll hold off on that till next week. I think as the off season starts, all three of us are big games guys, right? Like we like to play games, like doesn't have to be about sports, but we're just big into games, not video game. It can be any kind of game. We just love games. So I want to start. Yeah, it's the competition. You're absolutely right. I want to start doing games, but correlating to the NFL. We've done some, but make that more of a consistent thing because it's just another way to have a little bit of fun. So we'll definitely do a little bit more of that. Any other final thoughts, Shovit? I mean, again, it was a wild, super wild card weekend. Anything else that you think we forgot?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I just can't wait for the next round of playoffs. I'm like looking at these games. I'm like, how is Vegas even going to do the lines? I mean, is it just even for every single team? Like, what is going to go on here? So I can't wait for next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild week. And again, guys, we cannot be more excited about the interview with Lions rookie safety Brady Breeze, former Rose Bowl MVP, played for Oregon. He's going to have a ton to say. We're excited. It's going to be live, or we're going to have him in the studio on Saturday. It'd be incredible if we could do it live, but I don't know if logistically that'll all work out. But stay tuned for that. We're going to obviously put that out on all of our social media so that you guys can be prepared for that episode when it comes out. That's right. Brady Breeze, NFL safety for the Detroit Lions, will be on our podcast. Probably not the next episode, but the episode after that, because we'll have a preview episode. But again, so much to come.
The only playbook podcast?
The only playbook podcast. The only podcast that you need to get all of your NFL information. Guys, we're so excited. 2022 has just kicked off, and it's kicking off with an absolute bang. So this is just a small sample size of everything that's to come. Thank you guys so much for all of the support. We hope you guys enjoy all of the content. Again, all of the likes, all of the subscriptions on YouTube or whatever, all the reviews on all the podcast platforms, everything that you guys interact with us helps spread the word that much more. So if you want to see more perennial NFL players on the podcast, listen to more and get more insight on guys outside of just the football life, because that's really kind of, I want to learn more about players outside of football and see kind of what makes them who they are and how they shape to be the football player that they are. So getting into the mind of these players that are currently in the NFL is going to be really, really awesome. So hopefully we can do much more of that for you, and that only happens with much more support. So thank you guys so much for all of that. We're the only playbook. Shove it. We will see you next time.